Welcome back to the North American Hearthstone Qualifier Tournament. I'm Robert Worthenwing, joined at the desk by Team Dignitas's Chalky. Chalky, how are you doing?
Doing pretty great, pretty excited to finally cast here, especially with you, Rob. Nice to see you here. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm very excited. It was a lot of fun witnessing Phone Tap just beat Muzzy 3-1, obviously former teammates, so those kind of matches always carry a certain emotional weight with them.
Yeah, definitely. Phone Tap being the ESL Season 2 champion. We're about to see the Season 1 champion, Silentstorm, who was in a very similar situation. Both of them had a bye. So this should be Silentstorm's first match against Luchesi.
Right. As Nathan brought up, Silentstorm bringing Dragon Priest to this, which is a very, very popular ladder deck right now, but it's not one we're seeing much in competitive play. What do you make of that deck?
Yeah, I don't know too much to make of it. Obviously, it's a very new deck. Came out basically with TGT with the addition of some new Dragon cards, just some new Priest tools. Yeah, like you said, it's very strong. We haven't really seen it too much in tournaments, but when it's been in tournaments, it's performed pretty well.
Right, so if you're looking to build your own Dragon Priest deck or possibly any other deck, hop on over to Amazon.com/Hearthstone. They're running a sale right now where you can get basically discounted packs and really jumpstart your collection. And Chalky, do you have a clever Hearthstone card-themed pun about Amazon?
I really don't.
That's
I really don't, Rob. I'm sorry.
It's like innovating out your collection to get it out there sooner.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so our next match, as we mentioned, is going to be Silentstorm versus Luchesi. Luchesi, Silentstorm obviously well known for his performance in ESL Legendary Series Season 1. Luchesi's a little bit more under the radar, kind of one of those ladder heroes we've talked about today. Do you happen to know much about him?
Well, I do, because I was actually participating in the ladder ranks, and I had to pay close attention. Luchesi was actually one of the people that at the last moment passed myself, among other people, kind of just barely squeaked on in there. But he's obviously very much proven himself by winning 2 matches already. Doesn't really have too out-of-the-ordinary decks. He's bringing the Patron Warrior we see a lot. He has, the Druid deck, pretty standard, and also a mid-ranger Hybrid Hunter. We'll have to find out which one of those it is.
Right, both Silentstorm and Luchesi brought Hunter, which is one of those decks that, you and I have kind of talked about, especially last night, where we were saying that a lot of players are kind of sleeping on Hunter right now. And both of these players obviously are not. They're very, very much high on it. Basically, compared to most lineups, dropping Warlock in favor of Hunter. I don't know. I'm super excited to see how that goes. Whether or not these players... I haven't actually seen Luchesi's match. Obviously, he's played so far. I haven't seen if Luchesi's running that more hybrid or aggressive variant.
Yeah, I believe he's actually running the hybrid, and we are not sure which one Silentstorm's running, as this is his first match. So it could really be either. We're going to find out as he's playing it right in Game 1.
Right, and it looks like based on the Savannah High main, it's probably either hybrid or mid-range. It's not that straight face is the place.
Yeah, we really haven't seen, any face hunter in the past few months. It's very much been out of the meta ever since, Patron Warrior kind of came in. Dragon Priest is another really good counter to that. Just kind of hasn't really been finding its hold in the meta recently.
Right, we look at Silentstorm's opener, and he's got a pretty solid curve there. No 1-drop, obviously, but 2, 3, and 4 kind of right themselves. Looking over at Luchesi, Luchesi has a bunch of cards in his hand, but maybe not the ones you necessarily want to keep as far as Dr. Boom and Ancient of Lore go.
Yeah, Luchesi's really debating what to keep. He goes ahead and keeps the Wrath and Keeper of the Grove, which will help him kind of just stabilize in the early game, not really get ahead. He just wants to kind of go toe-for-toe. Like with that Knife Juggler that Silentstorm kept, Wrath will just answer that. Let him get into those later turns where Druid starts outpacing the Hunter.
Now we see Luchesi draws a very important card, Wild Growth. Debating whether or not to coin it. Looks like he's going to coin it out and go right to turn 3, which might not make an immediate difference in this matchup, but is usually a pretty smart idea to just get to that higher mana curve as soon as possible, especially for Druid, a class that more so than others probably relies on just kind of curving out to those bigger minions.
Yeah, I think Luchesi really just kind of realizes, okay, I'm against a Hunter. I'm probably going to need a Wrath on turn 2, so I won't really have time to make use of this coin and Wild Growth in the immediate future. This will set him up to not only Wrath this turn, but then if he wants to, play the Keeper of the Grove the very next turn.
Right, we see Luchesi obviously had a very, very straightforward play and just wrathing the Knife Juggler, but he draws that Darnassus Aspirant, which now, he's clearly considering, and it looks like he's going to go right with that Darnassus Aspirant. This allows him to, next turn, if it lives, which it might. That's the thing, is if you're playing against a Hunter, it might live. It would allow him to go straight into a Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, I feel like this is a little weak to something like Eaglehorn Bow. But then Luchesi has already kind of figured out, okay, if I get Eagle Hornbowed, then I get to play the Keeper of the Grove on curve, kill off that juggler, and suddenly I'm ahead on board. So I feel like just trading there for Silentstorm might have even just worked out for the best in the end. Gets Leok, which I feel like anything but Huffer would be pretty fine here because Huffer would just immediately die to either a Wrath or a Keeper of the Grove.
Right. I know Leok kind of gets a bad reputation as not being the preferred pet of choice, but, you know, he pulls his weight. He tries really hard. And in that situation, he didn't really affect things too much for the Knife Juggler. Silentstorm decided that Darnassus Aspirin was just too dangerous to be left alive, but he is tankier. You know, he's a lot better at absorbing hits, and we see this. You know, he's going to eat 2 Wraths. Yeah.
Luchesi had the option of hero powering over Wrath there. He'd only take 2 damage. That wouldn't be too bad, but goes ahead and opts to just cycle one of their S.
Right, and we see Luchesi has a very organic Druid of the Claw play. Or Druid of the Claw and also Keeper of the Grove, now that he has those 2 innervates. He could possibly look at innervating out Emperor Thorsan. What do you think of that, though? It would not really be, like, mana efficient.
Yeah, it wouldn't really reduce too many great cards. Wouldn't be mana efficient, and also when you have those innervates in your hand, it's not really reducing those at all. So it would only really hit 2 cards, and they wouldn't be that relevant.
Right, we see now Silentstorm draws an interesting card. He draws Ram Wrangler. Ram Wrangler is a new card from the Grand Tournament, which, if you have a beast down, it actually creates another random beast for you. So that could be anything from a Web Spinner to His Highness King Crush itself. Is there possibly a world where you would consider dropping Web Spinner and then maybe seeing if it survives to play Ram Wrangler next turn?
I feel like he's actually just going to check the 2-drop first. There's a chance he could have gotten a beast off that and then enabled the Ram Wrangler, but I think he's definitely wanting to save the Web Spinner to guarantee the Ram Wrangler for next turn.
Right. Obviously, Druid has very easy means of just dealing 1 damage.
Yeah.
So he ends up trading in the Shredder. He gets a Knife Juggler, which is obviously one of those cards he would normally want. He gets that, and then he also, you know, uses a kill command to get rid of Druid of the Claw. And then Luchesi, on the other hand, decides not to immediately just kill the Knife Juggler and just goes for the Keeper of the Grove, despite the fact that 2 cards in his hand are actually already free.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I like to call it you kind of druided too hard. You drew way too much mana acceleration. He drew 2 Wild Growths, the Darnassus Aspirant, 2 Innervates, and Emperor, and that's just like way overkill.
All right, let's say Ram Wrangler gives him Myexna, which is a very, very interesting card against Druid.
Definitely pretty strong. I mean, Druid doesn't have just hard removal. You know, they kind of coast off of Swipe and Wrath, Keeper of the Grove, just to do small amounts of damage. They really struggle to just remove one big high health target, which is what Myexna is. And Myexna, I mean, it is a 2/8, so it's not threatening your face much, but it's also killing anything you play. So something like Ancient War or Ancient Allure here, if he had it, would essentially do nothing against Myexna.
Right, and it also, I mean, obviously Keeper of the Grove wants to murder the Knife Juggler. But now with that Myexna down, you kind of have to think, like, do I maybe think that's more of a threat? Is that maybe worth silencing more than, you know, killing the Knife Juggler?
Yeah, it's really pick your poison here. Either way,
because
you're not having...
there's a poison vial.
You're not really having a great play either way. I mean, you're silencing that, which then leaves up more damage on the board, so you're taking more damage. Your hand is just so bad right now. I mean, there's really... He's basically playing off the top of the deck, maybe hoping to draw a big taunt to stabilize or something, because right now he's very behind in the game.
Yeah, and we see this is kind of one of those situations where Silentstorm chose to ignore the Emperor Thors, and it wasn't really punished.
Yeah.
In fact, the opposite, probably.
Right. I mean, Silentstorm was aware. Okay, there were only 4 cards drawing into a 5th card, so... You know, at most, it's probably going to hit about 3 cards. In this case, it hit 2. He still doesn't know that those cards are as bad as they are.
Right.
But I guess he was just kind of thinking, this Ram Wrangler play, this is the most powerful I can get. He was a little unfortunate on those juggles. I'm sure he would have loved to kill off the Emperor if 2 out of the 3 juggles had hit. But they all went face, and it's like, all right, guess we're going face and ignoring it.
Right. Sometimes you kind of just have to, Web Spinner. Web Spinner gives Silentstorm the Direwolf Alpha, which is going to be really huge in conjunction with that Militia Hounds.
Yep, combo that you don't see all the time. Kind of makes positioning more important. Of course, he played both from hand this turn, and just going to kind of further up his plan. Ancient Allure is a really nice draw for Luchesi, though. It's going to let him get into more cards. I don't think he can afford to heal with it. He really just needs to find more stuff to play with that second Innervate.
Right. Obviously, he draws Dr. Boom, he draws a Zerdrake. Not at all what he's looking for right now. Although, to be fair, when you're digging through those cards, what would you have been looking for, Chucky?
I'm not really too sure. Maybe you're looking for like an Ancient War going into future turns. Maybe you're looking for a combo just to clear and stabilize. Maybe draw into your second Ancient War to heal later on. Just generally stuff to help you stabilize the board, remove what you can. But with both Wraths used up and one of the Keeper of the Groves already out of the way, it's, his deck's not full of too many great removal options.
Right. That's kind of one of the pitfalls of using the Wrath for the cycle, is then there are sometimes later on where you're just thinking like, well, if only I had a spell that did 3 damage to clear minions. And that Ram Wrangler has exactly 3 health. Wouldn't do too much against the Myxna, and what's really cool about the Myxna staying up for Silentstorm is that even though it's silenced, if he draws Kill Command off the top, he just has this beast that is super inconvenient for the Druid to get rid of. So it's basically this, kind of in a way, just this activator for Kill Command, as well as something doing 2 damage with 8 health. Yeah,
and very interestingly, Luchesi is going to opt to just innervate out the hero power, as well as ramp himself from 8 mana into 9. So that'll give him 10 mana instead of 9 mana next turn. Maybe looking to Azure Drake into a 5-drop or something like that.
That's a Huffer. Is that? Yeah, it looks like that's gonna be lethal.
That's going to be exact lethal. So the innervate hero power not going to save him this time.
Yeah, it looks like Silentstorm is going to go ahead and take game 1. And Luchesi, as you pointed out, he didn't really get much off that Emperor Thaurissan. He played on turn 6, which you're the Druid. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And it just didn't really pan out for him. Silentstorm just kept taking that aggressive line and rolled Huffer. So.
Yep.
And to be fair, he got Leok the first time, so he deserved that Huffer.
Did he?
Everyone deserves Huffer.
Everyone deserves a Huffer.
Everyone deserves a Huffer after they roll Leok.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, man, sometimes Leok's just the best.
I would say that at that point, actually, Leok was the best, but,
Misha was probably a little better. But they ended up being the exact same because it just got wrathed off.
I defer to your knowledge of hunters, Jockey. You are definitely the hunter master.
Hey, man, those animal pins, all I know is, it usually gives you what you don't want. So.
Well, in that case, Silentstorm basically got what he wanted in the end there. He did get his Huffer.
Ended the game a turn earlier, so.
Right, so Silentstorm's Hunter deck is officially done for the afternoon. He's going to take the rest of the day off. And now he's got Dragon Priest and Druid to win out with. Luchesi still has access to all of his decks. I'm not really sure what I would expect him to take next. Any possible insight into what you would do there?
Not really. I mean, everybody just kind of has their personal preference on what they like to take at any point in time, so. Really just have to wait, see the matchup, how it rolls out, and go from there.
Right, so we see, as we pointed out earlier, Luchesi still has access to Druid, Hunter, and Warrior. The Warrior, presumably Patron, could be Control, though.
No, it's definitely Patron. We've seen his prior matches running that Patron Warrior and a Hybrid Hunter from his side.
Right, and we've already obviously seen that the Druid is just kind of that standard rank Druid.
I don't think we've really seen any unique Druid list besides a few different tech cards. It's mostly kind of a known shell of cards, and then you add your own little flavor to it.
Stripegrow did had what the community has termed the Nimsh Druid.
Yeah. Did he bring that to this tournament as well?
He did bring that to this tournament, yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him.
Yeah, that deck requires some finagling to really get to work out for you. So we see Luchesi decides he's going to go with his own, it looks like Control. No, it's not Control, it's Patron.
Patron Warrior.
But it has more of like that kind of control build. Some of them run like the shield block. Wouldn't be surprised to see possibly like a shield slam.
Yeah, we have seen some Patron Warriors include one shield slam. It's pretty interesting tech that works out in a few matchups. Works really well in the Druid matchup. Surprisingly, it's actually very good against Freeze Mage, which is a lot closer of a matchup than some people give it credit for. Just any matchup where you really just want to have the card execute, Shield Slam almost functions as a third execute.
Right, so Silentstorm, we see his opening hand. It looks like he's got more of just that kind of classic Control Priest build. He's even got Thoughtsteal, which is a card we don't often see in Priest these days.
Yeah, we don't know entirely what Silentstorm's deck is. We just know it's a Priest, and we kind of assume it's Dragon Priest, but we have not seen this list yet. It's got 2 Circle of Healing, so we're definitely going to see at least Northshire Cleric out of this deck.
Right. I appreciate, obviously, Luchesi has the 500-win Warrior portrait, so Garrosh is on fire in this, and Silentstorm's like, let me help you. Here's a heal. So hopefully,
yeah, it's definitely a misplay if you don't heal your opponent on turn 2.
Right.
And after TGT, it actually is, just in case you thought steal any Frost Giants.
So we see Thoughtsteal actually coming out from Silentstorm here. He gets Armor Smith and Shield Block.
Yeah. I think he would have loved to thought steal that Harrison Jones that Luchesi just top decked.
Right, yeah, that probably would have been a little more useful. Still with the shield block, he'll get some HP. He'll get the ability to draw a
it's just
card.
a cycle, which might end up being just what he wants here.
Right, I was going to say, how great would it have been if he got Warsong Commander and Patron?
Oh, jeez.
Patron, the Patron player. He also has Light Bomb here, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, one of the main things in this matchup is cards like Light Bomb basically ward the Patron off from going for their primary win condition, which is just make a bunch of Patrons. Good luck dealing with it. Priest obviously has a single card that deals with that, which is Light Bomb. But sometimes the Patron draw, they just kind of think, well, I just have to kind of throw it out there and go for it. And if that's the case, and you have that Light Bomb, you basically just win instantly. So Silentstorm knows he has kind of that insurance in his back pocket, but I don't think Luchesi's going to go for that kind of line this game. He has a lot of cycle.
Right, we see Luchesi plays down the Acolyte of Pain on the previous turn and doesn't actually have a way to get immediate value from it. So he's just content to kind of let it sit on the board. If we could see something like a Cabal Shadow Priest come out from Silentstorm.
Yeah, I think that's why he played it so freely in the early game. You really want to get it out while it can't be Caballed. Shadow Madness is in some lists, but you don't really have the luxury of playing around that a lot of the time. So you just want to get it out as soon as possible while it can't be Caballed, try to get your value out of it immediately, and really not get punished by that Cabal going into the mid-late game.
All right, we see Second Thought Steal, and we get Whirlwind and Frothing Berserker this time for Silentstorm. Frothing Berserker, maybe just a good tempo play since you have Warsong Commander as Priest. We see he also has Vol'jin in this deck, and he could have played Vol'jin on this turn. Elects not to. He's in a situation where he actually has a lot of cards in hand, but they're a little bit situational, so he's kind of forced to wait in like a holding pattern to see what Luchesi does.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of early late game cards, and like you said, thinking it might be a Control Priest, we really haven't seen any cards to indicate it's a Dragon Priest.
Right.
But we're seeing Confessor, Paletris, Vol'jin, a Light Bomb, 2 Circle of Healings. Like, this could very well just be a very controlling Priest deck.
I am super excited about seeing Confessor Paletris. Patron usually takes a little bit longer to win, so there's a world where we see a turn 9 Paletris heal.
Yeah.
And see what happens. You know, obviously the ability for Paletris to summon any random legendary.
Huge, like, swings. You know, could be Nat Pagal, could be Mal'Ganis in a fatigue situation.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what that ends up summoning, because I think we will get to see it at this point. We see Luchesi, you know, he's not really in a great spot either. He could coin out the Emperor, but he doesn't really have all the cards he would like to have for that.
Yeah, no, I really would like to see him hold on to that Emperor. In this matchup, the way things are going, it really looks like this is going to be a really long game, and it could go towards, you know, him really needing to pile up that huge combo.
Would you say pile on that huge
I would say pile on that huge combo. Yeah, you're going to need a Grim Patron, maybe some Frothing Berserkers, a few Whirlwinds.
We see Silentstorm draws the Cabal Shadow Priest we mentioned.
Yeah.
And now, the question is, do you take the damaged one or the undamaged one?
Well,
or do you take the 2/3?
It's really weird here because both players are so close to overdrawing. I believe Silentstorm has 10 in hand, so if he Cabals, he's at 9, and then if his Acolyte would die, he would overdraw.
Can he make Luchesi overdraw, though? He has the Whirlwind.
Yeah, he can. Now, overdrawing, a lot of pro players will talk about how it doesn't really matter unless you get to that end of your deck, and then it's like, okay, I could be drawing a card now, but I'm not. But if you can hit those really specific combo pieces, like say he overdraws 2 Frothing Berserkers, now you know that possibility is entirely gone.
And Silentstorm goes for it. So he gets a Warsong Commander. Let's see.
Yep.
He gets an Execute. We'll see what he ends up overdrawing.
We're going to see at least 1 overdraw, and I don't think, unfortunately, Silentstorm can force any more than that.
Inner Rage, that's a reasonable card to get rid of.
Right, but Luchesi is still under threat of overdrawing. He has 2 Acolytes on the board.
Right.
And 10 cards in hand. He needs to dump some cards, and he doesn't really have a great way to do that.
Right, and with the Warsong Commander, it's possible that now, you know, he feels he has the combo piece he needs to play down Emperor Thaurissan, but he could still be punished with the overdraws.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, the Emperor Thaurissan hits both your Frothings, the Warsong, a Grim Patron, and then some, you know, Whirlwinds, Executes, you name it. But sometimes you are forced to play it out early. It would be really unfortunate if he had to play it out early in this matchup. And but yeah, he really, I think dumping the coin is kind of how you start. Even if you don't even use the coin, just getting rid of it kind of helps.
Yeah, let's see. So he dumps the coin. He wants to see what he draws. Probably looking for what you talked about, some of those combo pieces before he looks at putting down Emperor Thaurissan. Now that you've kind of seen the 2 Thought Steals as Luchesi, do you basically figure that Silentstorm is playing that more control-oriented priest and expect the light bombs?
I think you kind of can. Obviously, Luchesi had no idea of any of Silentstorm's decks. This is his first match, so I think you have to assume, okay, if it was Dragon Priest, we would have seen some early action by now.
We would have seen some dragons by now. It's
right.
turn 7.
He would
Where
have
are the
played,
dragons?
you know, the 2/4 taunt. He could have played, you know, any of the mid-game creatures. Dragon Priest is well known for being much more aggressive than normal Priest decks.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, some Game of Thrones. Like, where are my dragons? There are none here.
Yeah, I just don't think there are any in Silentstorm's deck. He's got the Holy Champion, I believe is what that card is called. Basically, Big Light Warden.
Big Light Warden. I like that name.
Yeah.
Light Warden Senior.
You talked about Thought stealing the War Song, which didn't happen, but imagine if he did with the double circle with the Light Champion.
That would be the greatest thing ever if the Patreon
Pretty
player,
insane.
Yeah, got destroyed by that combination of cards. So we see Silentstorm is still kind of in an awkward situation in terms of what he wants to do. He probably wants to save something like a Light Bomb for when he sees the Emperor come down.
Yeah, I think he was thinking, oh, he's going to go for that Light Bomb. He's going hard on this overdraw plan. Really wants to try to mill some of those key cards from Luchesi. He's going to get at least 2, probably 3
Another
here.
Inner Rage.
Still gets more overdraws. Here's the second one.
Another Whirlwind. That's huge.
Whirlwind is nice.
And
Frothing
frothing,
is huge.
That's big.
Yeah. Now he knows that double frothing combination isn't there.
Right,
and will never be there.
He's in the unusual place as a priest where he's sitting at 32 health.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of time to work with. He did have to throw out that Light Bomb, so now we might see Luchesi think, okay,
Time to Emperor.
Time to Grim Patron. Just get them all out there.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a fair point.
He already threw out a Light Bomb. There is kind of the read you can make of, okay, he threw out that first Light Bomb really willingly. He probably just has a second.
Right. We don't know much about Silentstorm's deck list either. Like, we don't know if he's running Akanai Soul Priests. We don't know if he's running Holy Novas. Like, we're not sure what other board clear he has. You see him throw out the Slam because he still has the Acolyte of Pains on the board, and he wants to avoid probably being overdrawed any more cards.
Now he's basically safe from the overdraw. A Holy Nova or just generally any board clear would make him overdraw one more time.
Right.
But I think he's pretty safe from that.
Looks like he's really trying to set up for the win at this point.
Yeah. I mean, there is just that danger. Silentstorm's messing around with, you know, overdrawing and stuff. Meanwhile, a patron has 10 cards.
Yeah.
10-card patron hand is something to be afraid of.
It's definitely a kind of a don't poke the sleeping bear thing, you know?
Yeah, now he's going to cabal away one of those Acolytes. So now he's like, okay, probably can't give you any more cards.
You probably don't need to draw any more cards. That said, Silentstorm is in a position where he doesn't really have like a clear line of play, right? He's sitting with some situational cards.
It's almost like he's just waiting around for the patron to kind of do its thing. The Dragon Priest is much more proactive. I think in general, as a priest against patron, your game plan, you want to be proactive, force them to throw out executes on things they don't want to execute, whereas Luchesi is sat on, I mean, the one executes on the far left of his hand, and he sat on this other one for turns. Silentstorm hasn't been putting on any pressure.
Right, and so if you're Silentstorm, you drop the Cabal Shadow Priest to steal the Acolyte of Pain. Do you maybe think that he possibly chose to do it on that turn to try to coax the Death Spite to hit that as opposed to his face?
I think he just realized, like, okay, I can't let Luchesi just keep drawing because even though I milled a Frothing Berserker, if he draws until 30 cards are exhausted, Patron, even with one Frothing Berserker, can kill you from 30.
Right, although we should talk about the fact that 2 Inner Rages down, 1 Whirlwind, 1 Frothing Berserker, that actually very heavily impacts how much damage the Patron Warrior can do.
Yeah, and Luchesi's still drawing a lot of cards. Needs to throw out some. Looks like he'll go down to 9 cards, but he has an Acolyte out. So, again, the overdraw threat's still there.
Right.
Could be big, could not be.
I want to see Confessor, Pale Dress, and Hero Power. That's what I want to see.
I think that might just be the play this turn.
Like, what else do you really do? You can't clear the board. It might just be time. Show me the Legendary. I want to see it.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. He was teasing. He's like, all right, I'm going to think about it.
I'll do it.
I'll do it. If you all just...
Say I won't.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. He's got the... Yep.
All right.
All right. Let's see what he gets.
The thing I love about this is the animation takes so long, it's truly a surprise.
Come on. Kel'Thuzad.
Okay.
All right, so he gets a 6/6.
Yeah, it's like slightly above average.
That's reasonable. No universe where I would expect this to live past this turn.
Yeah.
There's no point in my mind where I'm thinking Luchesi's like, you know what? I would like him to just have more legendaries.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really anything for Silentstorm there that would have, put him in the lead out of nowhere. Just like, oh yeah, here's my legendary that wins me the game. There really isn't anything like that in this situation. I mean, Execute for Luchesi would deal with basically anything.
Sneed's old shredder. Legendaries on legendaries.
Sneeds into Sneeds into Sneeds.
Sneeds into Sneeds. Yeah, just keep going. Just keep Sneeds.
Never ends.
The endless Sneeds. But yeah, so Luchesi's probably trying to figure out if he has any way. Yeah, so he drops a Grim Patron first, which says he's not necessarily looking to actually just end the game here, so much as he's just going to make a lot of patrons. And
yeah, and
you've already seen one light bomb.
Yeah, Silentstorm threw out that light bomb. He has a circle of healing. That's his second one, so maybe if he can draw Auchenai Soul Priest. But other than that, I mean, if patrons are made here, he doesn't have an answer immediately.
Right. So Silentstorm went for kind of a cheekier line of play by forcing the overdraws, but it might get a little bit punished for it.
Yeah, and despite overdrawing one Frothing, despite overdrawing a Whirlwind, he has the second copy of both of those cards in his hand. He can charge it out next turn. We could be looking at just a potential lethal next turn, and what does Silentstorm really have to do against that?
Yeah, at the moment, basically nothing. We see...
Yeah.
Yeah, he can heal up a fair bit.
Yep.
With Light of the Narus. And
that just increases the damage even more, though, because you put out more units.
Right. So it's we see Shrinkmeister. Shrinkmeister's not super great here either. I'm sure there was a world where that could have been a comical Shrinkmeister into Cabal Shadow Priest on a patron. But yeah, otherwise, not really an obvious... Like, a lot of times with these control priests that have these kind of situational cards, there's not necessarily like an obvious line of play, right?
Right.
Druid has 5 mana, play Druid of the Claw.
Sure.
Priest, 10 cards in hand, 9 or 10 cards, and you're like, what do I do with these?
Yeah, that's what's so funny about it is you're kind of looking at your hand, you're like, which card do I want the least? What can I get rid of so I don't overdraw?
And obviously, you have to... Oh, what's he doing here? So he breaks the Unstable Ghoul.
Yeah, I think he realized, okay, I need to do that eventually.
Right.
And he's going to make a big Light Warden.
We've seen Bolt execute.
A tiny Light Warden.
He's seen Bolt execute, so he's like, well, time to push the agenda.
Well, he knows that at best, all of that stuff just dies to patrons, but I'm pretty sure at worst, he just dies.
Yeah, we see Warsong Commander come out.
Yeah, it's going to be a Whirlwind, and that's on 9 targets. So right now, he's actually going to trade off a patron first.
Right, let's see.
So Whirlwind on 8, and right now he has 13, so that's only 21. So
Luchesi has to be careful and make sure that he is actually counted this correctly.
Yeah, I don't think it's... Oh, no, it will be lethal due to the extra patrons, so definitely lethal with the Fiery War Axe as well.
Right.
Should be around 30 damage or so, 27 or 30.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, it's 30 with the axe, 27 with that's on board.
All right, so Luchesi spots it. Silentstorm did get to use Confessor Paledress.
He did.
He did get to make a legendary card, but Luchesi in the end is kind of, well, I've had enough of these games. I'm just going to win the game now.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the problem when your plan becomes overdraw your opponent. If you don't overdraw literally the perfect cards, you're basically just accelerating them to finding those cards.
Right, and throwing out the Light Bomb didn't necessarily win out for Silentstorm here. On the plus side for Silentstorm, Luchesi's patron deck is now gone. Silentstorm's priest deck didn't necessarily show off all that much information. I'm sure he would have liked to have held on to Confessor Paledress, but Confessor Paledress isn't necessarily one of those cards you see and you're like, ha, what a tech choice. How do I deal with this?
I mean, now I think the one important thing for Luchesi is going in, he had no idea what priest deck that was.
Right.
And usually the safe assumption is, okay, that's Dragon. Now he knows it's control.
Yeah, knowing that it's control priest is obviously going to give him more insight in the future matches. He's seen 2 Thought Steals. He's seen the Holy Champion. He's seen the Light of the Naru kind of stuff. So
yeah,
he's in a way better position. That said, Silentstorm has Druid and Priest still to win with. With Patron down, is there like a deck between the two of his that you think necessarily holds up against Luchesi's better?
I think Luchesi's best chance is actually, I'm not too sure. I feel like his decks are relatively even against what Silentstorm has left. And for Silentstorm, I feel like maybe his Priest has the better of his 2 decks left.
Right.
Druid tends to not like to line up into Hunter. Druid Mirror is obviously, pretty close. They're the same deck. And the Control Priest isn't something we see a lot, so I don't think there's, you know, a lot of info on those matchups.
All right, so it looks like Silentstorm decided to stick with the Priest. We see Wild Pyromancer, which we did not see last game.
Yep.
And then Luchesi is going back to his Druid deck.
Yeah, there were a few cards Luchesi didn't really get to see last game. He didn't see the Shrinkmeister. We saw it in the hand, but it was never played. You can kind of reasonably assume it's in there. Didn't see Wild Pyromancer, like you said. And we don't know, actually, if there's... I would assume there has to be at least one Akanai Soul Priest in there to make use of those double Light of the Naru, double Circle of Healing. Wouldn't surprise me if there were two. Right,
because, you know, something that we used to see more kind of back in the day, prior to even Curse of Naxxramas, was we would see Circle of Healing with like Injured Blade Masters, that kind of stuff, which really allows you to make good use of that. But if you're not running Injured Blade Master, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, Injured Blade Master, one of the cards that combos really well with both Circle of Healing and Light of the Naru. We didn't see it last match. Maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. Well, we'll kind of have to see. If it is in there, it's a little unfortunate for Silentstorm. He didn't manage to draw it.
Right, Cabal Shadow Priest in the opening hand of Silentstorm. Luchesi's going to go ahead and Innervate out of Shade, which is completely reasonable play.
Yep.
Although he has to be careful not to get too greedy, because that can become a casualty of Light Bomb.
Yeah.
We do see that Cabal Shadow Priest Shrinkmeister combo in the hand of Silentstorm. Druid obviously has some great candidates for Cabal Shadow Priest. Oh no, but there's a Shrinkmeister. I was going to say,
yeah.
Druid of the Claw kind of deal.
I think he kept it just planning to throw it out as a 3-2 on turn 2.
Yeah.
We're obviously a long ways away from any, you know, combos. And if he can get into turn 8 in a good scenario, I feel like he's pretty happy, just regardless. You know, he doesn't need the best combo. He just needs a good one. He's got Paltris. He has just a lot of late game in this deck.
Right, and even so, Druid actually offers up one of the best Cabal Shadow Priest targets in the form of Keeper of the Grove.
Yep.
So it's not going to be a huge problem for Silentstorm, although Keeper of the Grove arrived a little bit early.
Yeah, this is an extremely aggressive line from Luchesi. Popped off both Innervates immediately, and he's just going face.
Right.
Revealing the Shade immediately.
Silentstorm doesn't really have a play that kind of addresses the board. He could Thought Steal, but it just kind of puts him further behind on the board.
Yeah.
Or he could put down the Northshire Cleric and, you know, Power Word Shield to dig.
Yeah, I feel like he wants Power Word Shield to dig. You're really looking to draw your own cards, not your opponent's cards.
Right, so we see Holy Nova comes out, and then second Power Word Shield. Let's see. No, so there is an Akanai Soul Priest. We were wondering about that last game. Now, Luchesi has the pretty straightforward play of attack, hero power to get rid of this Northshire Cleric, and it's something you have to respect. You don't want the Priest drawing a lot of cards. That's where you get into trouble against Priest.
Yep.
Yep, and it does slow Luchesi down a little bit. Not that he actually had anything to really play on that turn.
Yeah, Luchesi, by going so aggressively with those Innervates, he basically is going to be sitting on that Ancient Lore, sitting on that Emperor Thorson for longer than he'd like. And the 7 health of that Northshire Cleric, even though he was able to deal with it pretty easily, it still basically stimmies his aggression.
Right, and we can see here, Silentstorm just plays down the Holy Champion just for tempo.
Yep.
And while this may not necessarily look like the best play, what it does is allows, if Luchesi trades that Shade of Naxxramas in to get rid of it, he can Holy next turn, her Holy Nova next turn just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Which may not be such a bad play at the end of the day, because you really do have to stop that thing from growing.
Yep.
We see the coin comes out, and then Azure Drake. We'll see what Luchesi gets off. Another 2 Ancient of Lores. He's going to be drawing a lot of cards.
Yeah, and it's really important that he will, because if you go for this hugely aggressive line, and the Priest does have the defensive cards to, you know, kind of stop your aggression, Holy Nova, Light Bomb, stuff like that, and you don't have the follow-up, suddenly you're just sitting on combo and your opponent's not at 14, and that is not where you want to be. Right,
we see Silentstorm, instead of Holy Nova, he just opts for the Wild Pyromancer Thoughtseo, which kind of accomplishes something very similar in that it kills the Shade. The Keeper of the Grove and the Azure Drake are a little healthier for it, but he wasn't going to kill them anyway with the Holy Nova. Now, he uses Thoughtsteal, and he gets Force of Nature, and he gets Wild Growth. The Wild Growth is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll really have too much time to squeeze it in, and it's a really situational card at this point in the game. On turn 2, it's obviously great, but in the mid-game, it really only helps if you specifically need that 1 mana the very next turn.
Right. He also, as we mentioned, gets Force of Nature. Force of Nature could be incredibly solid at clearing up this board right here if Luchesi doesn't play anything else, which, you know, he doesn't have anything else to play.
Yeah, and Luchesi's actually going to opt to hold on to a Wrath hold on to the swipe and get those cards reduced by Emperor Thorson next turn, deciding he thinks he's going to get better value out of that Wrath later rather than another random card in his deck.
Right, and obviously, when you're at 30 health, using your health total to get something off the board, not a big deal.
Yeah.
And the Priest isn't exactly known, especially Control Priest of all decks, isn't really known for its high burst damage, so.
Yep. The Priest deck, I mean, we saw it last game. Very reactive, very defensive. And against a deck like Druid and Patron, both of these decks that really just... Druid keeps putting out stuff, and they draw into a combo and eventually kill you. Patron doesn't really keep putting out too much stuff, but if you just let them accumulate cards, they have those huge combos to end the game.
Right, so we take a look. He does manage to use Force of Nature. So Silentstorm seizes the power of nature to clear the board. Luchesi's got a pretty clear line for turn 6, though.
Yep.
Not distracted by that Sludge Belcher.
Obviously what he was planning to play all along, and the Flash Heal is actually a really important pickup. They're going to let Silentstorm deal with this. We didn't see this card last game, but definitely a really nice response to Emperor when you don't have the Shadow Word Death.
Right, so he goes ahead and he makes a smart move and heals himself up a little bit because his health is not low, but against Druid, really, when you get into that 19 range, your health is kind of low.
Yeah.
So he goes ahead, deals with Emperor Thorson, and I'm sure Luchesi was not expecting that.
Yeah, now, I mean, the Flash Heal was super important because if Luchesi goes ahead with just an Ancient Allure here, then Vol'jin plus Hero Power is just going to answer that, and suddenly Silentstorm has the lead on board. He's at a healthy enough life total that he can't just be comboed out of the game. And, Luchesi's the one who has to worry.
Yeah, Vol'jin was another card that Silentstorm did not show off last time, so
Yep.
that is a card that, isn't in every Priest deck. So it coming down is kind of a surprise, and really, as you pointed out, perfect situation having the Akanai down.
Yeah. Luchesi kind of thinking over whether he wants to Wrath. Pretty obvious that that's really the only thing he can consider, seeing that both Innervates have already been used earlier this game.
Right, so that's kind of, if Silentstorm's paying attention, obviously Silentstorm is a very high-skilled player.
Yeah.
That is kind of a tell for him that there's a Wrath in hand.
Yeah, knowing your opponent already reduced some cards with Emperor, and they're on 1 mana, and roping the thought process. Obviously, it's not going to matter too much. Luchesi did take his time and decided that he will Wrath. He's going to cycle it, so it doesn't really do too much damage to Silentstorm's board.
That said, it will allow him to swipe it off the board, which is maybe something he was considering.
Yeah.
Just clean swipe. Here comes Vol'jin.
Yep.
Vol'jin comes down, swaps the health with the Ancient of Lore, and yeah, for the first time, Silentstorm really has a commanding board.
Yeah, and he's following up into a Ysera, so, I mean, in a dream scenario for Silentstorm here, I think he just wants to answer whatever Luchesi plays, stay above 14 life, which he's doing a fine job of, and just drop a Ysera. And
yeah.
That's basically kind of like a checkmate clock running on your opponent. Druid doesn't have... most Druids aren't running anything like Naturalize, so they're not just going to kill your Ysera.
Right, so that's something interesting to consider. If the Ysera does get silenced by like a Keeper of the Grove, which you might expect to see, you've already seen one, maybe you expect to see the second one, Ysera's still a 4/12. That's still just a big body that is kind of annoying for the Druid to deal with, even if he's not drawing stuff like Ysera Awakens, Nightmare.
And like we kind of talked about earlier, you have Cabal Shadow Priest, which is the best counter to Keeper of the Grove. Your opponent's basically wasting mana just to stop you from drawing Dream cards, then you take their 2/4. That's basically just where you want to be as the Priest.
Right. Control Priest can get to these situations, and this is how Control Priest really wins games, where they just pile it on and have like the answer to everything you put down.
Yep.
And it's kind of interesting because Silentstorm really doesn't have any cards in hand, so it's not like he has a bunch.
Yeah, and so Luchesi's going to answer here, and he's basically hoping, okay, maybe Silentstorm is out of threats. He has a fully reactive hand. That's not the case. Silentstorm, this is basically the perfect scenario for Ysera. Just empty board, jam it down on 9.
Yeah, Ysera comes down. That's just a huge, huge draw. Lesser for Silentstorm. Allows him to, I'm sure Admirable was thinking I didn't put enough emphasis on that huge trying. So he draws Ysera Awakens, though, which is a huge draw.
Yeah.
5 damage to everything is pretty brutal against Druid.
Yeah, he has to be really careful about how low that takes him because of the combo, but he knows both Innervates are gone, so he knows there's no real double combo threat. There's still 1 card in the hand if he's been keeping track that did get reduced.
Light Bomb.
Yeah, Light Bomb could kill off Luchesi's entire board and leave up his Ysera. He also has Holy Nova to do basically the same function. I think he'll come to the conclusion that Holy Champion attack into the 5/5 and then Holy Nova might be the best play. Of course, that would give you a 7-5 Holy Champion, so could get big game 100. One thing to worry about with that.
Right. I think there's also, well, let's see, looks like he's using Awakens.
Yeah, could just throw out Awakens.
He's thinking about it.
That's basically the scenario. You do have to start worrying about your health total again.
Right. So he does that, and then he's going to drop Holy Champion, and he's going to heal. So, I mean, he's at 17, and he does have a pretty big board. This does play around the fact that, you know, Big Game Hunter exists. Yeah. There is no Big Game Hunter threat now. So I don't need Wild Growth to draw a card here, so let's see what he gets.
Yeah, and he could be easily setting up lethal if he draws, like, Circle of Healing or gets, you know, Nightmare or Ysera Awakens #2 off of this.
Wow.
That's a lot of damage with the Holy Champion ramping up damage. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just representing lethal next turn unless Luchesi does something about this.
Some people go their entire games not drawing one Ysera Awakens.
He got 2 out of 2?
2 out of 2. Very skillfully played.
Yeah.
And he also gets Thought Steal off of the excess mana, so he's kind of riding this escalator from card draw to more card draw.
He Thought Stole into a Wild Growth, which then gave him another Thought Steal.
Silentstorm's a very tricky player. Curious to see. Now, let's see. You mentioned that you saw lethal next turn.
Yeah, if nothing happens, definitely lethal. You've got the 9 on board, the 5 from Awakens, and you can get +2 from the Holy Champion and another +2 from the Holy Nova and another +2 from the Holy Champion again. So you're a bit over lethal right now. Lotheb would kind of put an end to that, I believe.
Right. Unfortunately, Luchesi is just not really sure what to do. So he puts down the Sludge Belcher, recognizing that he could be in a world where there's a lot of damage. Probably not expecting the second Ysera Awakens.
Yeah, the second Awakens will kill his Holy Champion, though, unless he draws a way to buff its health.
Right. So let's see, Circle of Healings here. Yeah.
That's a lot of ways to heal your Holy Champion up.
Right, we see, and he does have Thought Steal again. I wonder if he maybe Thought Steals, tries to find something else. He could steal the Darnassus Aspirant with Cabal Shadow Priest. He's got a lot of options here. This is kind of where Priest reaches its fun point, where you're just like, all the things
you're ahead. Whoa.
You're ahead against Druid, no less.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sledge Belcher is basically the one taunt in the game that's going to stop Silentstorm from comboing off a huge Holy Champion and just winning this turn. He can get through the Belcher, but the Slime is a bit tougher.
Right, and Sledge Belcher clearly knows that. He's making a very arrogant face. He's like, hey, did you want to get lethal?
No.
Nope. Can't have it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Silentstorm spent a lot of time
out.
figuring it out, and I think he's come to the conclusion, yeah, there's no lethal, sad face, so what do I do now?
Right, because you have to be very careful, because you could be... He's gotten 2 Thought Steals, he's gotten 3 Forces of Nature. And he has to kind of clear off this board, or else be looking at a possible lethal scenario himself.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this kind of ends out, depending on where he attacked, where he healed. He's going to heal his face and probably kill off that 2-1. So this will leave him alive by 1 to combo. And he knows Force of Nature isn't in the hand, thanks to that Thought Steal.
Right.
So it'd have to be a top deck Force of Nature.
That's some next level mind games here.
Yeah, I don't think it... I think it happened so late, it didn't really influence his decision-making. He obviously still played around combo.
Right.
But I think that wasn't how he wanted that turn to go.
No, you kind of saw after the turn ended, he kind of made a face like,
yeah.
If
he
I
didn't
had
have enough time. I think he was so busy thinking about the lethal opportunity.
Right.
And, ooh, yeah. Gets to get off a free Wild Growth as well.
Thanks, Sorcerer's Apprentice.
And the Sorcerer's Apprentice is really threatening. I talked about how there's no threat of double combo, but with Sorcerer's Apprentice out, there is.
And unfortunately, Silentstorm has been Lotheb, which basically gets rid of most of his stuff.
Yeah, he's got the Awaken, so he can still play it even with the Lotheb effect.
Right. And I think that's probably what he's considering here.
Yeah. You basically need to get rid of, this board.
Right. Tiny Knight of Evil. Just making a cameo.
Tiny Knight of Bloodfin Raptor.
He's like, bye. He just comes down, and Ysera's like, okay.
The
bye.
Grand Tournament. Hey.
Hey. So we see a third Ysera Awaken.
Oh, gosh.
He's
just in case you needed more.
He's at 3 for 4. He may actually... When this is over, we'll have to consider how much damage he did. Just based... That's how a Priest wins games. Just keep drawing Ysera Awakens.
Yeah. And thanks to Ysera Awakens and the stolen Force of Natures, that is going to be it. Luchesi has no way to block out that damage in his hand.
Do you... Okay, so assuming Luchesi doesn't Hero Power, which probably will, but assuming he didn't, you hit with Ysera and then you third Ysera Awakens, right?
I think so, yeah.
You're going for the tilt.
You tilt them.
Yeah, you definitely go for the tilt.
I think as Luchesi, though, I think you just play out both your minions. Hope, something goes terribly wrong for Silentstorm and you just double Savage Roar next turn or something.
Well, again, this goes back to the fact that Priest, especially Control Priest, doesn't usually have much burst damage, so you're thinking, I'll be at 5 health.
At this point, you're like, okay, he has 2 Druid cards in his hand. He has 2 Dream cards, which could be Nightmare or Ysera Awakens. Either of which would kill me.
You probably have to think, like, he's probably out of Ysera.
So actually, he's going to set up for the Force of Nature top deck win. This is a different way to approach it.
I like it.
Yeah, you definitely have to kind of think, okay, what's my 1 to 5% chance of winning?
Right.
And this is it. This is what he found.
Oh,
Not going to do it.
He goes with the Force of Nature. He might end with the Ysera Awakens still. Yep. He's sending it over.
The BM.
The BM. This is, Soundstorm's like, yeah. He's like thinking about it. He's like, that was an appropriate level of BM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Tasteful. I like it. So that was, Soundstorm's going to take game 3 here. He's now up 2-1 on the series over Luchesi. Gets the win with the Priest. Only has to win with Druid now.
Yeah. I like how he was kind of showing off at the end. He's like, I didn't need any random effect to beat you. I've got you with this one and with this one.
Like, here's how dead you actually were.
Yeah.
And it's,
to my pre-stack.
Okay, so Ysera Awakens 3 times, so that's 15 damage. Factor in the Force of Nature. He did 21 points of damage with non-priest cards.
Yeah, who needs them?
Just play other classes. So if you're Luchesi now, I don't know, maybe you weren't expecting 3 Ysera's Awaken, or 3 Ysera Awakens.
I mean, when you're against Ysera, the main card, if you ask anyone, like, that you're not going to play around is Ysera Awakens generally. It's like, okay, hope they didn't get the Ysera Awake. Okay, you got it.
Oh, darn it.
Okay, you got it again.
So if you're Luchesi now, you still have Hunter and Druid. Silentstorm has to win with Druid. I would assume you're probably going to queue up into the Hunter.
Yeah, you can really go either way. Obviously, you do have to win with both if you're going to win this match. And if you do lose, you do go to the lower bracket, so there is still hope for you in the regional championship.
Right. Now, I actually have not seen any of Luchesi's matches, but I believe you mentioned earlier that Luchesi's Hunter is a hybrid Hunter.
Yeah. Believe that is the case, and we do basically get a confirmation with the Argent Horse Rider in the opening hand.
Argent Horse Rider is one of the new Grand Tournament cards that actually has my favorite introduction when you play it. It's a, don't worry, loves, the cavalry's here. I really enjoy that. I'm not sure if you enjoy it as much as I do.
I do like the card. I mean, I basically refer to it lovingly as Shiny Wolf Rider.
Really? Because I have miniature Argent Commander.
Miniature,
Argent Commander Junior.
Yeah, but he's like a Wolf Rider. It's charge, 3 mana. It is literally half an Argent Commander, though, in every regard. So
being the Hunter player you are, which do you prefer, Argent Horse Rider or Wolf Rider? Like, which is just cooler? Do you riding a wolf or riding an armored steed?
I definitely have a special spot in my heart for Wolf Rider, but I do think Argent Horse Rider is the better card right now. It's a lot stickier on the board. It's going to, stay on the board, keep getting in repetitive 2 damage. In the late game, maybe you want that extra damage, but in the early game, we saw Luchesi just kept it in his hand. He really just wants to play that card on 3.
Right, so we saw Luchesi play down the turn 1 Lepronome. Silentstorm just bops it. He's like, get out of here.
Yep.
And now we're going to come to turn 2, and Mad Scientist coming down for Luchesi. Luchesi's got a really, really strong opening. Solid curve.
Yeah. Silentstorm doesn't have too bad of an opening on Druid, though. He does draw that Wild Growth. He was able to easily get rid of the Lepronome, of course, Coin Hero Power. It's not like Luchesi didn't know that was a possibility.
Right. He's like, where did you get that?
Oh, man, he had the coin.
Yeah, so next turn, I would expect double Haunted Creeper. What do you think, though? Would you play Haunted Creeper and then Mad Scientist, or does it depend on your secrets?
Yeah, I think it really depends on how you've built this deck. Obviously, I don't know Luchesi's exact list. Neither does Silentstorm, probably. So kind of when you see somebody play out 2 Mad Scientists willingly, you can kind of expect, okay, he has multiple traps in his deck. We'll have to kind of see how he plays that out. We also have to see how Silentstorm's going to go about this. He could silence with the Keeper of the Grove, could just play out a Shredder. I think the weakest of the plays would obviously be that Savage Combatant. It's not really affecting the board at all. It's just as healthy as the Keeper of the Grove. It's, less resilient than the Piloted Shredder, so it's going to go with the Piloted Shredder. Just get on the board, save the Keeper for later.
Right, so, looking at this Piloted Shredder, maybe you don't necessarily want to try to trade into it. Like, maybe you just don't think it's worth it. No. Might just be time to make a bunch of spiders and then a Mad Scientist. Yeah, that's what he's thinking.
Yep.
And I think he knows where to go.
Yeah, I don't think there's any world here in which you're trading into a piloted shredder. When you do that, you're basically giving your opponents, 2-drop charge. It pops out, and then it gets to attack your minions some more. Hunter is a very aggressive class, as many people are well aware of. You're going face.
His curve is still Luchesi's curve is still really good for next turn.
Yeah.
That said, he chooses to trade into the Mad Scientist. This still allows for a kill command from Luchesi.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you think? Would you have traded into the Mad Scientist?
I think you're either trading or going face. He went face thinking, okay, now there's only 5 power on the board. Hopefully he just doesn't have the kill command and my stuff lives.
Right. He only had 2 cards in hand. Luchesi only had 2 cards, so
yeah.
He's going to get a little bit punished
then
for
again,
that.
Hunter has a lot of sources of damage.
That's true.
He would only need 1 extra. Of course, kill command is a very efficient answer. It's going to let him push 4 more to the face.
Right. And we see in hand for Luchesi, he has Unleash the Hounds, which not always the greatest card against Druid, as Druid doesn't tend to just, throw down a bunch of stuff on the board. They usually play 2 or 3 bigger creatures. There isn't actually a world where 2 creatures come down from Silentstorm.
Yeah, there is. A lot of the times you'll just see Hunter players against Druid unleash for 1 or 2.
Right.
If you get 3, I think you're actually pretty happy.
Right, so we do see a double secret coming out from Luchesi.
Yeah, unfortunately the secrets are basically in the wrong order. It's not like he made a mistake. That's just kind of how they came out of the Mad Scientist. Of course, if the explosive trap is first, then if something dies to explosive, it won't proc the freezing. Whereas when they're played this way, it'll get frozen, and then the explosive procs.
Yeah, that's not great for Luchesi. That said, Luchesi has kind of figured out, I would imagine based on the hero power into the 1/1, that there is no swipe.
Yeah.
So he kind of has the green light to just keep going forward. He has Ironbeak Owl in hand. It's gonna take some big stuff here for Silentstorm to stabilize.
Yeah, trap order is pretty much the least of his worries now. He's just like, okay, can I draw any source of damage and kill my opponent next turn?
Right.
And the trap order ends up being inconsequential as the Pilot Shredder still gets frozen. Silentstorm's going to have to heal his face, which is essentially just delaying what the board is doing right now. Because even after clearing off a 1/1, Luchesi's still going to have 5 on board, so healing 5 is basically okay. Let me live 1 more turn.
Right, and we'll probably see here from Luchesi just Shredder and hero power.
Yep.
Just keep going face. And Silentstorm's going to have to find an answer if he wants to live.
Yes, going back to the Wolf Rider versus Argent Horse Rider, I believe this is going to be it's either 8 or 10 damage that the Horse Rider has gotten in.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And we still see the explosive trap, which still represents 2 damage.
Yeah, that's the 10th point of damage Argent Horse Rider has done. Really repetitive points of 2, and that'll get your opponent low.
Yeah, and we see because it has a Divine Shield, Silentstorm just hasn't felt it's worth addressing just yet because he doesn't really have
had a great way.
Yeah. He's opted to deal with, the 1/1 Spider. And Silentstorm draws Innervate, not the best option, or not the best thing he could have drawn.
Yeah.
And now he plays down what I lovingly call the Desperation Drake.
Yeah, now he has to go for the Desperation Shredder.
Yeah. See if we can get that Doomsayer to come out.
Explosive Sheep would have been nice too, but neither of them come out, and that is, I believe he's just dead on board no matter what.
Let's see. All right, so yeah, he's just going kind of his valiant last charge into the face. But this is good because he gets information.
Well,
this
information's not too relevant now.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a fair point. I was going to say maybe it's just a habit. But yeah, we see more than enough damage. Luchesi's got it. Wonderful to see a little bit of maybe BM counter. Nope. Just the cavalry arriving.
Yeah.
Luchesi's going to tie it up. Yeah, we go 2-all. Next game wins the Druid Mirror match.
Druid Mirror. That's what it's all going to come down to. Luchesi was behind, but obviously he's even it up, and now it's basically anybody's game.
Yeah, not drawing the swipe when you're playing against Hunter as a Druid is a surefire way to have a really bad time. Obviously, you need to be drawing that. He also, I don't believe, did he draw a Wrath in that game?
He did, or no, he didn't. He hero powered off the Leper Gnome, so no Wraths, no swipes. Had the Wild Growth, but of course the minions, not really that efficient when your opponent has stuff like Freezing Trap from Mad Scientist, Kill Command to get through your taunt, and just a bunch of different small minions.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Druid drew all of kind of the larger minions, which are great later on to kind of seal the Hunter out of the game. Yeah. But when that's all you have, you can't really do too much with it. And that was unfortunately the situation that Silentstorm found himself in. So, as we said, now we go to the Game 5. There's no guesses here about what's coming up. It's a Druid Mirror. Obviously, most of the time as Druid, you're kind of looking for those early, wild growths. You're kind of looking for Darnassus Aspirant post TGT. And that really actually doesn't change here, I don't think.
I mean, I think the mulligan phase is going to be pretty self-explanatory. Both players, just like you said, looking for wild growth, Darnassus Aspirant, and Innervate. Maybe if they get those things, they can kind of consider what else complements them, like a Shredder if you have an Innervate, maybe a Shade if you can coin out that wild growth, stuff like that. But really going into the mid and late game is where kind of decision-making comes in big, where you have to consider playing around combo, not playing around combo, which minions you want to play, and if one of the most important things, do you want to go face or trade? Because face damage is very valuable in this matchup.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I see a Druid mirror at this level, there's always a point where one player has to go, okay, I just have to play like they don't have the combo.
Yeah.
We see Living Roots in Silentstorm. That's another card from the Grand Tournament. I personally run one copy of it in my Druid deck. It's becoming more popular with players. The ability for Druid to just deal 2 damage is actually really big. And even on turn 1, if you just want to do, make a couple saplings.
Yeah.
And these saplings are adorable.
They definitely are.
Look at them. They're like dancing. They're like, hey, please don't bite me with your face.
I always like to think they're kind of like pointing at me, like I just told a really good joke, and they're like, hey.
Nice job, Chalky. Nice job. And then,
obviously
they get eaten because they're small saplings.
Yeah, they do tend to die.
The sad life cycle of small saplings. Maybe Silentstorm, if he hadn't just played Druid, could have tried to hint that he was more token Druid.
Yeah.
But obviously Luchesi kind of knows the lineup a little better.
Kinda. I mean, to be fair, he didn't see too many cards last game.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a fair point.
And when you're hunting, they don't really get too much time to play out their deck.
Hunting is not necessarily something that you do at the leisure of the opposing player. That's true. So, Luchesi could coin into that wild growth. Could just pass, maybe look at something like next turn, wild growth, so he goes right to his turn 4, could possibly Keeper of the Grove if something else comes out. That said, in the Druid Mirror, you're less likely to see like a 2-drop with 2 health. That really makes that Keeper of the Grove a super savvy play on the first, or on that early turn. You're usually actually using it just to silence something.
Yeah, I think he went for the wild growth. He doesn't really have a 3-drop to play, but I think he's thinking, okay, at worst I can just Hero Power off a 1/1.
Right.
I might not have time to fit this into future turns.
All right, so we see Darnassus Aspirant come down for Silentstorm. Kind of the soft wild growth.
Yeah.
That said, Luchesi, doesn't have a way to deal with it.
Yeah, Luchesi's hand, not the greatest. Maybe it can get him into the late game, but Silentstorm obviously had the much better curve in the early game with the 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, now, I was just thinking this to myself the other day. Sylvanas used to be a real staple of Druid. I don't think I've seen a single copy of Sylvanas post the Grand Tournament.
Yeah. It's definitely not one of the most aggressive cards you can run. Right. So people kind of trending towards, obviously, Emperor Thorson and just other very aggressive cards you can play. Azure Drakes. Sludge Belchers are kind of defensive in nature, but they also just kind of push for damage.
Yeah, it's just something I was thinking about with that Keeper of the Grove. Luchesi goes ahead and uses his hero power on its last turn to put 1 damage onto the Darnassus Aspirant, which kind of telegraphs Keeper of the Grove.
Yeah.
Because it's either that or he's going to Savage Roar to get rid of it next turn.
Don't think that's happening.
Maybe he has his own Living Roots.
I think Silentstorm's kind of like, okay, if you want to Savage Roar that on turn 4, go right ahead.
I'll let you do
that. Silentstorm does have an option here to silence off his Darnassus Aspirant and keep that Mana Crystal. I think he's going to go for that. I definitely prefer that over just dealing 2.
Yeah, that's a pretty heady play in this situation because it's clear that Luchesi was definitely going for that.
Yep.
And now it makes the Keeper of the Grove to get rid of it way less effective.
Yeah, and most importantly, next turn he's going to get off a Wild Growth most likely. That'll curve him out into an Ancient Allure 1 turn sooner than otherwise. And if he didn't silence it off and lost that Mana Crystal, he could have gotten into some trouble.
Right, Luchesi still goes with the same play. He's just going to get rid of a 2-2. I think he realizes he just needs to get something on the board.
Yeah, pretty obvious play here for Silentstorm. Doesn't really have much to do. I mean, his top deck was just another Shade. So going to go with that Shade, Wild Growth, so he can play that lore next turn. But really importantly for Luchesi here, since he was the player behind, he picked up an Innervate, which is going to hopefully let him get back to this game.
So Silentstorm opted to trade his saplings into the Keeper of the Grove to get rid of it, which to me I don't know. I kind of think it slows him down a little. Obviously, it slows him down, but it also telegraphs that he's not maybe looking to do something like innervate out combo. That said, obviously, he has 2 cards in hand.
Yeah.
But it kind of shows that he's not necessarily looking to win in like the next 2 turns.
Right. It does kind of show that he doesn't really have a Savage Roar. He doesn't have, especially double Savage Roar.
Right.
Nothing too crazy aggressive. He thinks he can win the value game, which with Ancient Lore, obviously, you are looking to do that. But I don't really think he was looking forward to Luchesi innervating out of Dr. Boom. That's one of the things that can maybe save Luchesi in this game.
I mean, a lot of people aren't super fond of going to the doctor's office. Dr. Boom is another one of those doctors you maybe are not thrilled to see.
Yeah, and Emperor Thorson.
Pretty timely.
Pretty good card when you draw it right on turn 6.
Turn 6, Emperor Thorson shuffles in. He's like, you need me? Like,
well,
actually, I do.
Okay, wait a second. We're in a Druid Mirror. This is turn 5, Rob.
I've lost all semblance of time in Druid matches.
I don't really count turns in Druid games. It's just like,
We need clocks. It's like standard time, Pacific time, Druid time. With just it goes up to 10. It just lets you know what time it actually is for Druids. Clearly he's thinking about doing some other stuff. There is, Silentstorm does have a board.
Yeah.
So
the Boombot hit's really big here.
Yeah, let's see what he had.
Whoa, that's probably the best one.
What a spiteful Boombot. Why would he do that?
I mean Shade of Naxxramas, natural predator of that is the Boombot.
That's true. We do, in the office have a predatory food chart.
Yeah.
Just above Shade of Naxxramas is Boombot. So.
And suddenly, Silentstorm, who was so far ahead, it seemed like, now he's like, okay, I can't even get rid of that Emperor.
That's the power of Druid time.
Yeah.
We see, okay, so he goes ahead and gets rid of the Dr. Boom. This is going to allow a second turn's worth of value for Emperor Thorson unless he trades it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he's thinking.
It's not going to be insane value this time. Unfortunately for Luchesi, those first 2 cards, just being the Savage Roars, I mean, later in the game, that'll give him a pretty easy double combo to just win.
Yeah,
So,
even without that, you look at like Druid of the Claw into possibly double Savage Roar. That's a pretty strong amount of damage. You can play down the Sludge Belcher, which is actually the natural predator of the Shredder.
Yeah,
The natural predator of the Shredder. That almost rhymed, I think. So we see that, and, you can just go ahead and leave that Emperor Thorson up and just keep collecting value.
Yep.
Now, on the Wild Growth, it's not as big, but on the other cards, it's huge.
Yeah.
He's heading towards a universe. Soundstorm doesn't really have a way to deal with it, where he could just have free Savage Roars.
Yeah, there's still no way to deal with it. Big Game Hunter comes 1 turn late, 2 turns late, actually, but...
Right. I am looking forward to by looking forward, I mean horrified of, a world with free Savage Roars.
That would not be a world I want to live in.
Let's see actually what he's looking at next turn. He's got 5 damage off Emperor Thorson. He's got the Sludge Belcher that looks like might now.
It should survive. I mean,
you don't think he hero powers to...
Well, I think you'd Shredder instead, right?
Well, you should... Yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's true. So he's got that. He could charge up Druid of the Claw and give it Savage Roar.
He'd have, with 2 Savage Roars, he'd have a 9 power minion, a 7 power minion, and an 8 power minion. But he'd have to get through a 4/6 taunt.
Right. So I think Silentstorm is probably safe for the next turn. Other good news for Silentstorm, Wild Growth, pretty dead until, 2 turns from now.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Oh.
Swipe
no,
is...
he doesn't have mana.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. He hasn't gotten too many Emperor procs.
Yeah.
Savage Roars aren't free yet.
But soon.
Yeah, so there's no lethal here. I believe it's only 22.
Right.
Only
22. And Emperor is going to get off another turn. Let's see. As far as dealing with that Druid of the Claw, I mean, you probably do have to deal with it, right? You can't just leave it up.
Well, yeah, you do want to push damage this turn. I think that's, a pretty big deal for him. So looks like he's just going to, oh, yeah, this makes sense. You just push your 22 and swipe him next turn.
Yeah, fair point. And then he only has 2 cards in hand, so...
Yeah, only Shredder shenanigans can really stop that, or a Ancient Lore off the top, but then you're not really dealing with these minions. And so I feel like this is almost a guaranteed win here for Luchesi.
Good draw. What could he draw?
What could he draw?
What could Silentstorm draw?
I think Shredder shenanigans with like a top deck swipe.
Tree of Life.
Ooh.
Tree of Life. That would keep him alive a turn. Savage Combatant, though, is not the answer, and looks like Luchesi is going to come back in this series.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a combination of things that save him. It'd have to be like a Noyotron, and then you can't even pop the second Shredder.
Now, I want to say a turn 5 Dr. Boom is very strong, but it was on Druid time, so it was actually turn 4 Dr. Boom. Turn 4 Dr. Boom is a pretty reasonable card.
I'd like to see the win rate stats on that.
Turn 4 Dr. Boom. Yeah, that's I would assume Dr. Boom gets there a lot of that time.
Yeah. So he's going to pop the first one. He can pop that second one if he Savage Combatants. But that's not a taunt or a heal, which are the things he needs. He's still fighting.
I'm not really sure what he could possibly...
Well, in his mind, he's thinking, okay, if I get Noyotron, that'll block the on-board lethal.
Right.
But, of course, there is that swipe from Luchesi, so that should do it no matter what pops out of Shredder.
Oh.
It is a taunt, so like in Silentstorm's mind, he's like, maybe.
Oh, and then the Wrath went at it anyway. So Luchesi's going to crawl back into this series and take it.
He won.
He won the Druid Mirror after being really behind in the early game.
Yep, that Innervate was very timely. Let him kind of get back into this game, and I think he made all the right pushes in that game. At the end there, he just kind of identified, how could I lose if I do this, and went for it.
Like, I think I'm just going to do a lot of damage and then finish him off next turn with a smaller amount of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damage is nice if it puts your opponent to 0.
Seems good. Seems good.
It was good.
Yeah. So hats off to Luchesi. Really hard-fought series. He came back after being down 2-1.
Yeah, I think he's definitely kind of a dark horse in this tournament. He's only one match win away from making it out to the regional championship.
Right, and for Silentstorm, who now goes down to the lower bracket, very skilled player. No doubt we're going to be seeing him again real soon. So
still has a chance.
Yeah, and up next, we have Fibonacci versus Jab. So this is very exciting. We haven't really seen Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is a huge question mark in this tournament. Obviously, done very well on ladder. I believe he got 2 #1 finishes. Consecutively with Control Warrior, which was pretty strong at the time, but wasn't really considered the best. I believe Patron has been, considered the top ladder deck for a lot of players for a while. He was like, nah, I don't need that. I'm playing Control Warrior. I don't think we can expect anything but that from him in this tournament.
Yeah, unfortunately, Conquest format, as we saw from the video, does not allow you to have 3 of the same class. So.
Yeah, that's one big problem for him. He can't just coast off Warrior like he can on ladder, and we're going to have to see how he performs with not only Warrior, but 2 other classes.
Fibonacci is, in the North American Qualifier tournament, actually just the mysterious challenger. Like, he's going to pop in and say, who am I? None of you. Well, I'm Fibonacci.
Well, now it's kind of our business. Yeah, he's in the tournament.
We have to know.
Yeah.
So, Jab obviously beat out Strife Crow. Arguably one of the best Hunter players in North America.
Definitely.
So, going to be an exciting series. So we're going to cut to a short break, but guys, keep watching. We got more awesome Hearthstone matches coming up.